Are we good? Wait. Which way is this? Hold on. Orientation is what? Rotate. I don't want it that way though. No. Did I mess this up? I messed it up. I think I gotta do it this way. No. I can't get anything right the first time. Alright. And we'll do this. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Alright, so am I sideways? I'm sideways, am I? What's going on? Hold on. Alright, I have an idea. Man, I have missed you all. Look at all these beautiful people commenting right now. Oh, it's been a long time. Alright, hold on. Oh, let's try it this way. Oh. Alright. I have missed you all so incredibly much. It's been a crazy journey. It's been a crazy journey. Alright, so I'm tired. I just got done with a 20-hour flight. I just went from Africa to London, Mauritius, to London, and then it was just a big mess with my airlines. I missed one of my flights because they screwed up. So, and now I'm in a pretty cool hotel room right now, back in America. Yo, I missed you all. You have no idea. I've been playing a lot of Cyber Hunters. So, yeah, I see some of the comments already. Let me get a drink of water real quick. Alright, so, there's been a lot of stuff going on. I want to update you about the Identity 5 dev team, some of the stuff that we've been talking about, and I want to update you guys on Dead by Daylight Mobile. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then we'll talk about more Identity 5, more about where the Persuadable channel is going, and, yeah, give me a second. I think I have a tripod. I have a tripod that I'm going to try to use. Okay, the tripod is actually broke, so we can't use the tripod. Alright, whatever. So anyways, we have a lot of stuff to discuss. Why is this like this? I don't want it this way. Hello. Hi. Alright, you think that I would have figured this out by now? Yo, that's a good chair. We're gonna go in a chair. And we're gonna have a discussion. Alright, so first and foremost, again, it's good to be back. I am trying my best to get a camera that is like somewhat okay and tolerable. Hold on. Hi! Alright, this is the best that I can do. This is the best that I can do. Alright. How about we do... Oh, actually, you know what? I don't even think I need this anymore. Yeah, we'll go. Hold on. Okay. This is the best that I can do. Alright, does this look a little bit better? Alright, so... we have a lot of stuff to do. I talked to the Identity 5 development team. I spoke with them, told them, yeah, they gotta do something with Enchantress. Needs to do something with Prospector. There's a few approaches that the dev team can ultimately take. They can either take it on the individual characters, or they can just buff the hunters. We all know this. Here's the problem. The problem is that when you have characters, right? When you have characters who are as overpowered as what Enchantress and Prospector are, okay? What happens is that I understand that there's a lot of people who like to play those characters, but the problem is when you have characters who can stun and who no longer have that fear factor with the hunter. What happens is that not only are the characters overpowered, but then all the other characters are replaced. So one of the suggestions that I've been seeing through the community is people saying, well, why don't they just buff the hunters? But the problem is that when you have a flesh wound, putting a band-aid on it before securing the bleeding isn't really a good idea, right? You got to make sure you secure the bleeding with a nice big wound, right? We don't just put a band-aid on it right away. So anyways, so the point is that in regards to the development, in regards to the balance of the game, when you have characters like Prospector and Enchantress, who can not only stun, but also just completely disrupt the hunter in the correct hands. Of course, you can buff all the hunters, buff them all you want, but it doesn't rid in the issue here where Prospector and Enchantress, etc., those sorts of characters will still be selected on a higher, let me say, on a higher frequency than some of the other characters. Now, I know that in the recent Chinese tournament that they had, a lot of the Enchantress teams also lost. I know that there was some guy on Reddit talking about that, but that is irrelevant because the thing is Enchantress is still relatively new. Mercenary wasn't really professionally used until months after his update back in October or November. So, and actually Mercenary wasn't utilized until after the Ripper and Spider buff that happened. So the point is that sometimes it takes people a little bit of time to really utilize these characters, and those characters are disruptive. So, it's not that I'm saying that they shouldn't buff the hunters. I'm just saying that if you want to buff the hunters as a boo-boo band-aid to the Enchantress and the Prospector, you're going to still have issues in regards to people still choosing the same characters. Mechanic, Mercenary, you're going to see Priestess, you're going to see Enchantress, Prospector, maybe a little bit of Forward, but not as much. There is still decent character diversity. We saw the character diversity in the Call of Abyss tournament. The problem is that in the Call of Abyss tournament, they did not have Enchantress and Prospector. Now here's the thing with Prospector. This is going to get some people upset. Remember, I give my opinions. I've been like this in Season 1. Alright? Prospector doesn't take any skill. I'm sorry. On a skill level, Prospector takes less skill than what a Perfumer takes. You literally just run into a narrow area, like Arms Factory, throw a magnet down, and it's automatically going to work in your favor. And then usually you'll have that one Prospector main who's like, well, what the hunter can do is when you start seeing the charge, you just back up so the charge goes away, and then you can't magnetize him. And it's like it doesn't matter. You still made the hunter stop going after you. It doesn't matter whether the magnet works or not. It's the fact that if you're diverting the hunter's attention, regardless of whether the magnet actually activates, you're still putting distance between you and the hunter regardless of whether the magnet activates. It's still giving you time, which is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous skill. There is next to little to no skill involved with Perspective. You throw a magnet down, an Arms Factory, which is completely, yeah, that's its own discussion. And you just throw it in between a pallet, and the hunter has to go through the pallet. If the hunter doesn't, in certain parts of that map, they have to go all the way around, and then you can just camp the pallet and camp your magnet. So even if they don't go, even if the hunter doesn't go, and he tries to go around, there's no way. He has to eventually go through the magnet. And even if the hunter decides to activate it and back up a little bit to prevent the activation, right? The thing is that you're still causing the hunter to back up. Listen, asymmetrical games, the foundation of the asymmetrical games was that hunters were supposed to be scary. You were not supposed to have like these big, ridiculous weapons as survivors, right? The hunters are scary. You have next to nothing. I guess in Dead by Daylight it used to be the flashlight abuse, right? So, you know, that was always there. But the point is that the survivors aren't supposed to just be able to, you know, run around and just, oh, you're going to come after me, hot, stun, stun. Stun, 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 stun. You get a Prospector, you get an Enchantress, you get a Seer, you get like a Mercenary, you got Mechanic as well in there. It's just, they need to address it. And so I talked to them and I said, you guys need to address this. And the official response to me is that in-game balance is being worked on right now. Alright? Is being worked on right now. And, I mean, just look at the community. There's so many, this is one of the few times in our community where I actually saw this big of a discrepancy for those who are saying that the survivors are overpowered. Usually what happens is that in regards to the balance of this game, alright, traditionally everybody has been saying survivors need to be buffed, survivors need to be buffed. I mean, we've been dealing with this in Season 1. The entire purpose of my channel was to show people, listen, at the time I was winning at 75% frequency. So if I can do it, I know you all can do it. And this is what you need to do with your character. And that's the reason why this channel was able to blow up, is because back in the day, some of the hunters were a little bit easier to kite as compared to a Spider and a Foggy Blade, and and Ripper, I'll give you that. But all we had was Thief, and we had a little bit of Perfumer towards the end there, and Magician. We didn't have Prospector. We didn't have Enchantress. We didn't have those sorts of characters. So for the first time, we're really starting to see more and more people say, listen, these characters are ridiculous. And you're seeing it at a higher frequency than before. It used to always be survivors need to be buff, 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 buff. And now, if you go back to my community tabs, you're having the same people who used to tell me survivors need to be buff who are now saying, wow, these characters, what are we going to do about them? So yeah, I miss Season 1 as well. I really, in Season 1, there were no broken survivors. No, I wouldn't say there were broken survivors in Season 1, because in Season 1, everybody used Clown, and at the time, a lot of emulator Clown users came from China over to US, so a lot of us US players and European players had bad ping. We had not emulators, and all we had was Magician and Thief, and that's when I came out with the first tier guide, when I said, hey, Magician is good, and the whole community was like, Magician's not that good. And I was like, well, me and your mama are the top 10 players in the game, and he's using Magician as a counter to Clown. That's one of the videos that really set this channel apart. We challenged everybody's views, and people realized, hey, wait a minute, this stuff actually works. People started winning more, and it was a good time for everybody. Now, I'm glad that Lizard Man came out. Some people are saying that Lizard Man is overpowered. I'm not going to give an opinion on that. It's good to see some of the other survivors who are being released. I'm interested to play with them. So when I'm over in in Mauritius, I can't play Identity 5. The ping is too bad. So I was playing a lot of Cyber Hunters over there. I got to Legendary 4, I think, like Legendary 4. I actually had a sniper battle with the number 3 overall kills in that game. The person with the number 3, and I sniped him right in the face. It was one of my proudest moments. So I've been playing that game. I was a former top 100 PUBG mobile player. So playing Battle Royale, I have fun playing Battle Royale games. So I've been playing Cyber Hunter. But yeah, so there's been recent discussion about this Dead by Daylight mobile. So the Dead by Daylight mobile, there's a few credible areas saying that there are credible leaks. I know on the Reddit and the Dead by Daylight community, they flared it as credible leak. With the whole, it's probably in alpha or beta stage right now. I don't even think it's in beta. It's probably in alpha. I don't know too much. I don't have too much communication with those developers. I'll definitely reach out. If Dead by Daylight Mobile comes, I will be covering that game. 100% I'll be covering that game. And I'll be covering Identity 5. And I'm working on my first game review, so that takes a lot of time. So, you know, I don't want this to only be an Identity 5 channel. I want to continue growing and continue developing, and I appreciate the people who support that for sure. I saw some of the guides, some of the other YouTubers have come out with some guides recently about some of the characters, and I thought some of them were good, but some of them were pretty bad. So what I decided to do is I'm going to come out with a character guide on most characters and just really start from fresh. Start from fresh with every character. This is how you can expect to play them. And there's also going to be a video that discusses the synchronization of team members. All right. I can't get too technical because there's a lot of technical gameplay. You see forward users and Priestess users. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Call of Abyss 2 and some of my contacts from the other servers. The problem is that when we develop these guides, they're going to be developed for rank. They're not going to be developed for competitive mode. And that's the difference between somebody who knows what they're talking about versus somebody who doesn't. Okay, so I've been seeing this criticism a little bit. What happens is, and here's what happens. Okay, here's what happens. What happens is that somebody decides to go and watch some random streamer from the Chinese community or the Korean, whatever, any community. They do it with the US players as well. They see this strategy, and then they go, oh, all the top Chinese players do this. This is why we need to do this. Listen, you play your characters differently in competition mode versus rank mode, all right? If you want to level up to legendary mode, your game style, your gameplay is going to differ a little bit compared to competition. You do not have 4 people to play with. It's a little bit more complicated, and you do have to keep that in mind. You have to keep that in mind that when you're when you're in rank 5 and rank 6, and you only got one other teammate, and you can't talk to the other 2 teammates other than chat commands. There are a bunch of universal things that other people understand in those tiers. They understand the importance of borrowed time. They understand the importance of 2 people having tide turner. That's an important thing. But the difference is, as an example, is that when you look at competitions, right? In competitions, there's this new strategy. I don't want to call it new, but one of the things that happened in the U.S. server in the top tiers is that everybody used to run tide turner. All right, so back in season 1 and 2, we didn't run tide turner. Only like 1 person ran tide turner. Most of us ran left and right for our kiting ability, and it would work out because it was easy to do it against a clown. Excuse me. All right, tide turner abuse started coming out around season 2, season 3. And what happened on the U.S. is that except for Mind's Eye players, a lot of the top tiers all would run tide turner. And the idea is that when I'm in legendary rank mode, if we all have tide turner, then because we don't have the same communication, all of the top tiers on this server didn't have the same skill set as what they do now. It was just easier for everybody to run tide turner because the closest person could run. Now, in competition and competitive gameplay, it doesn't work that way. There's actually a new belief that only 2 people should run tide turner and 2 people should not. If you have a mercenary and a mechanic should go in for the first save. Mercenary should go in for the second save. The reason why mechanic goes in for the save is because they have their doll. They can continue decoding while somebody's in that rocket chair. So technically, three people are still decoding at all times with mechanic. Then you have mercenary. Now in competitions, when you have a good team, like a really, really good team, you should be able to kite for at least 60 to 70 seconds. So the idea is that if you have 2 people with tide turner, you should be, even if that first person is eliminated. So the person gets down, boom, down to 3 ciphers. Person comes in for the first tide turner, rescues, gets down again, boom, down to 2 ciphers now. Gets put on the rocket chair again. Hunter comes in, boom, survivor comes in, rescues again, another tide turner. You better hope that your team is down to that last cipher, right? Because you pop it, everybody's up, everybody's running. The problem is that we realize that tide turner, a third tide turner, it doesn't really work at that point. So what we have realized is that Perfumer, right? So for instance, Perfumer's build is actually changing. Perfumer's build is actually changing because a lot of people used to use tide turner with her. But the thing is that in competitions, you already have a mechanic going in for a rescue. You already have a mercenary going in for a rescue. Even if you have a bad game, you should be down to 1 cipher when that first person is eliminated. So when it comes down for a second rescue, that last cipher machine should ideally be popped. Perfumer goes in. You don't need tide turner. You have your perfumes. And then once they hit the person down, then you immediately pop the ciphers up and everybody rushes. And at that point, you're trying to secure the tie. Furthermore, if you're the person being chased after and you have a left to right build, you have an increased probability of actually escaping with the hunter tunneling you in the final seconds of the match. Whereas if you go down and right, you don't have that capability. So we all know that the tide turner strategy is still used, but now in competitions it's changing. Sometimes they have 3 tide turners, 1 left to right. Sometimes they have two tide turners and 2 left to right. They're changing up the strategies. This was witnessed in the Call of Abyss tournament. If you go back to the Call of Abyss tournament, pay attention to when some of those survivors, some of the top players in the world, when they hop that pallet and they get that boost. That's how we know that they're going left to right. All right, no one's sacrificing right. No one's sacrificing borrowed time. So the point is that talking about this is talking about the development of the high tiers in US EU. It used to be left to right, then it went to everybody read tide turner. But now, because players are getting better on this server, survivors are really good. Like the survivors are getting really, really good, a lot better than what they used to be. Now people are understanding this is what the mercenary does. This is what the mechanic does. So when you get into a lobby where the mercenary and the mechanic and they're top players, it's like, I already know those 2 are running tide turner. And I already know that they need to go in for the rescue and not me. So now what I'm going to do is maybe I'm going to either run tide turner in case we don't think that we're going to get to that last cipher before that one person's eliminated, you can do that as a safety net. Or do you go left to right? And because if you go left to right, if the mechanic drops her doll immediately, right? So a strategy is that some mechanics drop their dolls immediately, right when they spawn and hide it. I mean, like drop it and hide it. And the reason being so is that if the hunter does go after him early game, they know they're going to be tunneled, but the doll's already down. One of the older strategies that mechanic users used to do is that they wouldn't use the doll right away, and they would hold the doll, and then they would try to body block with the doll, and we're realizing that that's just a waste of time. You want to put the doll down because if the hunter goes after the doll, you'll be pinned, but you separate in distance. We saw this in Call of Duty. The hunter went after the mechanic's doll. Alright, almost every time the hunter always went after the mechanic's doll. And the reason being so is the hunter knows that if he tunnels the mechanic and gets him down, the mechanic is still going to use the doll. Alright, so you have the mechanic ability where she puts the doll down. So, sorry about that. So you have the mechanic, so going after a mechanic early game sucks if they put the doll down. Because you know that if I go after a mechanic, if they have the doll down, even when they're in the rocket chair, somebody's decoded. Right? But it's still good to get the mechanic down first. You go after a mercenary, top tier mercenaries. They're invincible. They'll use their elbow pads, you're not going to get them. That's why people aren't using coordinator in the Chinese community anymore. At least a lot of them aren't. And the reason being so is that instead of wasting a flare gun early game to make sure you don't get hit, why don't you just use elbow pads? That's the point of mercenary. Alright? Then you have seer, and then you have others like, perfumer, etc. Alright? The idea is that if you build left to right on characters like seer and perfumer, what happens is that when the hunter starts early game, he can't do anything to the mercenary. Mercenary should, if he does something to the mercenary is still learning. If you go after the mechanic, that's his best strategy. You go after a seer or a perfumer with a left to right build, they're going to kite like crazy. They're going to kite like crazy because now they're no longer relying on a down the right build where they don't have any knee-jerk reflex or any boost. With that boost is the biggest difference. And so I'm not saying that this is the ultimate strategy. I'm saying this is something we absolutely saw in top competitions. And the idea is punish the hunter early game. Go after the mercenary, you're not going to get him, boo-boo. Go after a seer or a perfumer. Well, instead of giving them tide turner, give them left to right so they can kite better. And if they're kiting better, you're securing absolutely the 70 to 80 to 90 seconds early game. So what happened with the top US players back in Season 2, Season 3, we started using tide turner down and right, but the hunters got significantly better, but because we were all using tide turner, we didn't have the ability to climb a pallet. I just saw John Zhao's guide. He made an embalmer guide. It was a pretty good guide, and I could see that he was building left to right. And if you go back to his guide, you'll see that the only reason why he was able to kite, as long as what he did, is because he had that left to right build. That's nothing against John. It's John using the right build. That's how you're supposed to kite. And so what we did wrong as a server is we just had everybody use tide turner. And what we did is, this is when Spider was completely overpowered. This is when Ripper first got their buff. We all stabbed ourselves in the leg and we're like, oh, well, we're not going to kite as well. We're not going to kite as well because we all need tide turner. Well, when we did that, we realized that a lot of the early games, we were dying a lot more. Top players were starting to die a lot more. And if you go back to my original videos, I told the community, listen, it's not because the hunters are overpowered. It is, but it's because you changed your builds. Not everybody needs to run the tide turner anymore. If you have, so I'm not saying that the forward tide turner situation is no longer a thing. It is a thing. My point is that you don't see it in top competitive rank matches top competitive tournament matches too much. You just don't see it. Go back to the Call of Abyss tournament. Go back to the top players. You are going to see people who are hopping those pallets or hopping those windows and getting a significant boost. And so that's where I think that the US, and now because the strategies are increasing, hunters are having a difficult time. And not only that, they just introduced Enchanters, introduced Perspector, and they're going to be monsters to deal with. I mean, Enchanters can do this thing. Okay. I'm the Ripper. Here's the Enchanters. The Enchanters can time her stun right when he uses the Foggy Blade, where he goes to swing for the Foggy Blade, she stuns, his animation stops, his Foggy Blade activates, and gives the Enchantress more time to dodge. Top Enchantress users know how to do this. If there's any Enchantress users who are top players, they know exactly what I'm talking about. I want to read some of the comments now. See what you guys are yelling at me for today. I know that the, oh man, really, this is annoying. I gotta be on the floor. Turn up your mic. Can you guys not hear me? Hi. I am tired. How? Oh. Alright, let's see. We're just gonna hold this. I'm done with that. Alright, so we're gonna just hold this. Hi. Okay. I was just on a plane for 20 hours, so I look a little disheveled. Thoughts on Enchantress? She needs to be looked at. Persuade. Do you think the perfumer is still OP with all the new survivors that are out? A good perfumer? Yeah. So can you confirm that Mercenary is better than Coordinator? Well, I mean, I would say that Mercenary is being utilized more and more with every tournament, and their victory rates are increasing. Let's see. So that's the big thing with Mercenary. The whole point of use of Mercenary is that because Ripper is a lot more difficult to go against, instead of screwing up the rescue and relying on a flare gun and risking the excitement, you just go with Mercenary and don't worry about it. Do you think Thief is a low medium tier set? The Thief is pointless. Alright. Cowboy. Cowboy is probably C tier, maybe, if that. Persuadable, who is the better priestess, me or Fun V? The answer is me. Fun V is a very good player. Is Cord still good? Coordinator is good if your teammates can survive early game because you can decode faster. We actually saw some teams lose because they chose Mercenary. Even as a survivor main and playing as Hunter occasionally, I feel bad for Hunters whenever they go against Enchantresses and Prospectors. I agree with you. Thoughts on Robbie? A lot of people are starting to use him and really say that he's getting better and better. Sorry, dude, but I think Fun V is better. Fun V is amazing. Do you think that the Cypher's late game acceleration has a nerf buff? They need to do something with Cypher Russian. Right now, it's not fun to be a Hunter. I have no fun. I have no fun playing Hunter. Do you think Dancer deserves a buff, and after a buff, do you think she will be used in higher tier? No, Dancer will not be used in higher tier unless somebody wants to have fun with her. Dancer will probably still stay as B tier. We saw the top Chinese team. We saw the #1 team in the world use Dancer only when a whole bunch of other survivors were banned. And so if they increase the bans to 3 survivors, that she may have a role. But until they address overpowered fun characters like the Dancer, who's actually good, will just be replaced over and over. So I'm so glad you said this. Cowboy is actually really powerful once you learn how he works. You should study Cowboy the same way you did Dancer and make an official statement for Cowboy. So Cowboy, the thing with Cowboy is that it doesn't matter how good you theoretically think he is. He's always going to be significantly behind on other characters. That's actually my entire argument. My entire argument is that when you have characters like Prospector and Seer and Mechanic and Mercenary, when you have characters who are just ridiculously powered that way, what you're going to see is people who prefer to use them. So when we say that characters are better than other characters, it doesn't mean that you can't use the character and win. It just means that objectively what we see is from winning teams is that none of them are using Cowboy. And there's a reason for that. Same thing with Dancer. Dancer was used one time in the Call of Abyss tournament. One time was used in the Call of Abyss tournament. And it happened to be by the #1 team in the world. But that was when 3 other survivors were banned. Doesn't mean that Dancer isn't as good, but everybody can acknowledge. Yes. So that's something that I've been dealing with since like season 1, where people will yell at me and they're like, oh, well, when I use this character, I win. Well, 2 things. 1, to be honest with you, no one cares. But 2, I'm actually happy that you're winning with these characters. It's just that objectively there are better characters. The idea that all characters are equal, if you honestly think all characters are equal, you're doing a disservice to this community. Because then you're just essentially saying that all of the characters are perfectly fine, nobody needs to be addressed, it's not a mechanical issue, it's a player-based issue, and that's not the case. Why would I want a cowboy who may use his lasso correctly, who may miss the lasso, when I could have a seer? Because, again, we're not saying these characters can't be used. We're not saying flame people for using these characters. We're not saying that at all. We're just saying objectively there are better characters than other characters. The stats prove it, and that's why top Chinese players, the top players in Team Korea got to the tournament. The reason why Team Japan got to the tournament, that's why. That's because they understand this. Duty, I think you need to put him in his place. I would love to see any of you do that. Let's see. Let's see what Call Me Duty. Where's Call Me Duty? Come on, Call Me Duty. Where are you? I'm looking for your comment. Where is it? Where? Hold on. I'm trying to see what Call Me Duty is trying to say. I'm trying to find it. What did Duty say? I missed it. Damn it. Okay, I missed it. This way, do you think Dream Witch is good because I'm top 9 with her and I love her? Some people use her. Do you think Lawyer needs a buff? Lawyer needs a nerf. Let's be honest, Lawyer's map can still destroy the hunter so cool. Photographer shouldn't have that cut and decode effect. It makes no sense. Photographer is not really that good. But listen, I'm actually gonna end the feed. What's happening here is that my phone is almost dead, and I am super tired. I just wanted to let you all know that I miss you. Hand cream, send me the link. I'll definitely watch it. Send it to me through email. All right. I'm gonna get off. I gotta get on Discord. I need to go talk to the people on Discord. Those people have been waiting for me. They're such remarkable people. I want to talk to my staff. They've pretty much been posted up the videos while I've been gone. And yeah, we're gonna start doing. I gotta relocate 3 hours tomorrow. I might start streaming. I think I'm gonna also start streaming some Cyber Hunters. I like to play some Battle Royale games. And